date is May 8th, 2010, and I am Miriam Esther Pomerantz. Today, I will be interviewing MIcki and Sherwin Keeps, my grandparents. How are you doing today?
Good. How you doing?
Very good. Thanks for the introduction.
So glad you could be here with us today. Can you each tell me where you were born and raised? Papa, you first.
Detroit, Michigan.
And Grandma?
Okay, I was born in Brooklyn, New York, but when I was 2 years old, my parents moved to Detroit, and that's where I was raised.
Who are your parents and where were they born and raised, Grandma?
Okay, my parents were Estelle Cohen Block, and she was raised in Brooklyn, as well as my father, whose name was Marcus Block. It used to be Blachinsky, but his family changed it to Block, and he was also born and raised in Brooklyn, New York.
Papa?
My mother's name was Ruth, and her maiden name was Joseph, and she was born in Detroit. And my father, Henry Keeps, was also born in Detroit.
Who are your grandparents and where did they come from?
Who would you like to hear from first?
Papa?
My mother's grandparents, my mother's parents, were born in Romania. Jacob and Tony. And my dad's parents were from Hungary, Samuel and Bertha.
Grandma?
Okay. I really knew all four of my grandparents, and they were all at our wedding. I felt really blessed to have all of them there. And my mother's parents were Sarah and Jacob Cohen, and my father's parents were Becky and Hyman Blachinsky.
What about great-grandparents?
I knew my grandma Sarah Cohen's mother, but she didn't speak English, and I don't think I told you where they were all from.
Next
Yeah,
question.
okay. And I really don't remember her name, but because I was a very little girl when I was around her. But all I remember is that she would sit in the front window of my grandmother's apartment and just watch people on the street. And she had silver hair, and she wore it in a long braid. And she lived with my grandmother, Sarah. And, you know, I think that my grandmother Sarah's family was from Russia, where my other grandparents, I believe, were from Belarus.
I have zero recollection of my great-grandparents, and I only knew my grandfather.
You know where in Europe they were from?
Well, I'm assuming that they were all from either Hungary or Romania.
And grandmother's in Russia.
And Belarus, which was sort of part of Poland, I think, either Poland or Russia, or, you know, just not sure because the countries have changed.
The borders keep changing.
The borders all changed since they lived there.
Who are your siblings? Grandma? Grandma, who are your siblings?
Okay, I just have one brother, Dennis Block, and he's married to Mary. And Mary has 2 children from a previous marriage, and Dennis has 3. And together they have 12 grandchildren.
Wow. And Papa?
My sister's name is Toby, and Garvin, and she's married to Lee Garvin, and she has 2 children, a boy and a girl,
And 3 grandchildren.
and 3 grandchildren.
Growing up, how did you get along with your sister and your brother? What kind of relationships do you have, Grandma?
Okay, my brother is 3.5 years younger than me, and so he just sort of hung around me a lot and really got on my nerves, I could say.
He was a pest.
Well, that's what Sherwin thinks, but Sherwin didn't meet him until he was 15, right? Sherwin was 15 when he met my brother. But I spent many other years with him, growing up. But, just like any other siblings, I think we had our good times and we had our bad times.
What about with Toby?
Toby's a year younger than me, and I honestly can't remember any time that we fought or didn't get along.
How about now?
No, we don't fight now. I just sort of never criticize her. But I mean, even when I remember we both had our tonsils out at the same time. So I was 6 and she was 5, and they kept us over at the hospital those days. And she was scared and crying, and so I volunteered to go first, so she shouldn't be so afraid. When I was 13 or 14 and had a paper out, on the weekends with the Sunday paper, I'd have it in a wagon, and she would come with me to sell the papers. So we got along great.
Is there any special story that you remember from your growing up years that you can tell, Grandma? A special story?
Well, I think that maybe you would enjoy hearing this story. I must have been 5 or 6 years old, and I was starting to go to Sunday school at a synagogue nearby, and we could walk there, and some other children in our neighborhood went also every Sunday morning. And that was the first time I found out about tzedakah, what tzedakah was. And after I learned about what it was, and it was charity, and it went to less fortunate people, I decided the next Sunday, I took all the silver dollars that I had in a drawer that had been given to me by my grandparents and parents, and brought them to synagogue and gave them for tzedakah. And afterwards, many years later, I realized that, other kids were bringing a dime or a nickel. And I just gave them all my silver dollars. I thought that was the thing to do.
Do you have any stories, Papa?
Well, along the theme of religious school, I started Cheder after regular school. I would go 4 days a week. And it was not my favorite thing to do. So I remember one time, it must have been in the spring or fall. It was warm, and the windows were open. So I crawled out the window of the school, and half the class followed me out. So every year I would start Cheder, and then I would leave, and then I would start, and then I would leave. So I had sort of a checkered past and I had a little reputation at the Hebrew school.
What kind of students were you?
You mean in regular school, in high school, in?
Kind of students. You want to talk about what kind of student you were?
Well, in high school, I set a record at our high school for cutting study hall 6 weeks in a row till I got caught. But my excuse was, at the time, I would leave study hall and go to a deli near the high school and get MIcki a sandwich and bring it back for her to have for lunch. So that was my record that I established in high school. And I really don't remember a whole lot about, elementary school. I was a safety boy for a brief period of time until it rained, and my mother thought that it was not good for me to be out in the rain. So I had to quit that. And then in middle school, I was trying to protect a student that everybody was making fun of, and the teacher was making fun of him, the shop teacher. So he kept me after school quite often. So that was my memory of middle school.
I have some memory of elementary school. I went to a school that we walked to, and it was far. I mean, I think it took us a half hour, at least, to walk to the school. Um, in the rain, in the snow, it didn't matter. We walked to school.
Okay.
And the principal, I remember the principal, her name was Mrs. Sullivan, and she played the piano, and she was very involved with the students. And we would have assemblies, and I remember she liked to play, "I'll be coming around the mountain when I come, I'll be coming around the mountain when I," you know that song?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, she would sit there, and she was quite a large woman, you know, and she'd pound on those keys. And also went for...
Did you like to sing?
Yes, I always
Okay.
liked to sing. We all sang, even though I don't have a great voice, we all sang. And also, she would make costumes for us out of crepe paper for school plays. And I remember standing in her office and her wrapping me in rolls of crepe paper for some costume. So,
Did you ever get in trouble growing up in school?
there were teachers I didn't like, but I never really got in trouble. I wouldn't say. I can't remember ever getting in trouble. No, I was pretty quiet and complacent. I did my homework.
Did you get in trouble, Papa?
I got in trouble a lot, a lot in high school, especially in high school. I was always being sent to the counselor's office. I mean, I got in trouble. I told a history teacher once that he probably should go see a psychiatrist. And I thought it was, he gave us this assignment. We had to color world maps, countries of the map, countries of the world on the map. And he was saying we were going to be graded on how well we drew. So I raised my hand and said I didn't think that was fair because it wasn't an art class. It was a history class. So one thing led to another, and I finally said, well, I think you need to see a psychiatrist, and he kicked me out of class. And that was just one example. Then I used to sneak, when we went outside for gym, me and a couple other guys would sneak cigarettes in our gym shorts, and we would go outside behind the backstop, the baseball diamond, and smoke cigarettes. And every once in a while, we'd have to look like we were engaging in some kind of sports. So I was running track with the hurdles, smoking a cigarette, and tripped and fell, and then I got caught because they saw the cigarette. So I got into trouble for that. And then I told you I was expelled because I set a record. So I had to come back with my mother. And the principal said no college in the United States would accept me. And I said, what about the University of Hawaii? Because that was before Hawaii was a state. So I was kind of a smart ass in school.
Growing up, did you ever experience anti-Semitism?
Well, the schools that I went to had a very large percentage of Jews. Our high school closed for the Jewish holidays. So we lived kind of in a ghetto area. And so almost everybody we knew were Jewish. I never had non-Jewish friends until we lived at Michigan State University. Didn't know very many non-Jews. So.
Yeah, when I went to my elementary school, I only knew 2 kids in the class that weren't Jewish. And really, considering that in those days there was still anti-Semitism, we never very much experienced it, although as a teenager I can remember going to an amusement park with a bunch of guys and passing another group of guys that looked pretty hoodie, and somebody made some remark about those Jews, but that was really, we never really, I think we were lucky growing up where we grew up and how we grew up. It was kind of protected.
growing up, did you ever have a favorite restaurant, like your favorite corned beef place or something?
Sure, there were lots of Brothers, Fretzens, delis.
Are those places still there?
No.
No,
And then we had a favorite hamburger place. It was a drive-in called the Totem Pole.
Big Chief.
Remember? We'd get Big Chiefs.
Big Chief burgers.
Or we'd go to Howard Johnson's and get clam rolls.
Snow White restaurant.
Snow White, yeah.
And the best pizza was Maria's Pizza. My favorite deli was called Modern Deli, which was such a funny misnomer, because it was this really old deli and mom and pop deli. There was no menu that you ordered at the counter. They brought it to you. There was no checks, and the mother of the deli, she'd sit at the register, and you tell her what you had, and then she would tell you how much. And if people tried to cheat, they said, they would have 2 corned beef sandwiches, and they'd say only 1. You still got charged for 2, because she saw everything. And it was good corned beef, too. I don't think that place, I'm sure, is not in existence anymore.
When you were teenagers, did you have jobs, like summer jobs or after-school jobs?
Oh, yeah. I started working, my first summer job was as like a secretary for an office that was run by a husband and wife. I think it was a real estate company or something, or insurance. And the wife wanted to stay home for the summer. She wanted to do her gardening and so forth. So I just kind of babysat the telephone, took messages, and you used to pick me up there on James Cousins. And then I had a job, an after-school job, a couple of them, also for insurance places. And then they trained me to answer the phones, do typing, help customers when they came to the counter. And it was, I don't know, maybe 3 hours a day after school.
Did you work, Papa?
Oh, yeah, I worked, some of the time I worked for my dad. That was when I was a little older as a teenager. I worked in the summer, but also when I started college, I worked for my dad for a while. And he had a heating and air conditioning business. But I sold shoes, first in the neighborhood, and then I went big time and I sold shoes in a downtown shoe store. I worked in an ice house for about 5 hours because it was in the middle of the summer and we were in the ice house making ice, filling ice bags, and I lasted about 5 hours and I couldn't feel my feet anymore. I sold ice cream, sold shoes.
Ice cream truck.
And I had an ice cream
truck.
A little scooter with an ice cream cart on the front of it. And I did that for part of the summer. And then mostly was for my dad. Oh, and I worked for a guy that sold, that had a route where he would put different products in machines, combs and prophylactics and
tampons.
And he also had machines at the time. TV sets had tubes. So you could go into a drugstore when the tubes burned out and test the tubes to see which tubes were good or not, and then it would sell the tubes out of the bottom of the machine. So I used to set up the machines and put the tubes in, keep the inventory. Once in a while, he'd let me go on the route and actually check the machines and collect the money for the tubes.
When you were a kid, what did you think you wanted to be when you grew up?
I used to dream about being a ballerina. But when I realized that wasn't going to happen, I thought I'd probably end up a teacher.
I didn't know you wanted to be a ballerina.
Yeah, I thought I could do that.
Papa, what about you?
I have zero recollection of thinking of what I wanted to be. I knew that I didn't want to continue working for my father, in the heating and air conditioning business because I was left-handed and everything was right-handed, and I never was getting the hang of it. When I went to college, I declared a major psychology, and I wasn't even sure why I did, except that's the major I declared, and then everything else followed from that.
So what did you end up doing as your life's work?
Okay, well, when I started college, I started in education. And one day when I was enrolling for the next semester and found out that one of the requirements was a course where you had to learn to use audiovisual equipment, and at that time it was overhead projectors and slide projectors. I thought, I don't think I want to take this class. I don't think I want to spend time doing anything like this. So I went to see a counselor at school, and he said to me, I'll never forget this. I think you need to have another child. He just looked at me. He says, well, maybe you just need to have another baby. And I looked at him. I said, bye. I'm out of here. And that's when I changed my major to sociology, which, I really liked. And then I thought I wanted to be a social worker, but there were really no ways for me to get a graduate degree in Fort Wayne in social work. So instead, I worked for a while as a case manager for Big Brothers Big Sisters. I matched underprivileged children with adults. And then I started getting a master's degree in public administration. And that's what I ended up, studying and working as a caseworker for several years. Then I went to work for another United Way agency that was called First Call for Help, and it was a citywide number that people would call that needed assistance. Then I started a volunteer program called the Volunteer Connection. It was the first volunteer program in Fort Wayne, and matched people with agencies that needed volunteers. And then I got training to do board of directors training. Lilly Endowment had this wonderful training that I went through. I don't know how far you want me to go. Up to now? Okay. And so as a consultant, I did this board of directors training for a while. And then in 1995, I started working for AON, and that's where I'm still working, AON, as a human resources consultant. So I do interviewing and testing for their clients, which are major national and international corporations.
It reminded me when you were talking about the impact of the environment on us and how we may not even realize about the impact. Because when I moved to the new neighborhood when I was about 13 or 14, the old neighborhood was really kind of really working class. The new neighborhood was more middle class, upper middle class. And I see all these kids walking around my age, but they were wearing sweatshirts or T-shirts with funny names on the front of them, and I didn't know what they were. They turned out to be names of colleges. And that was
Harvard,
Yale,
Columbia,
and then,
Yale.
or Greek names of fraternities and so forth. And I mean, I knew kids already at 13. One kid knew he was going to be a dentist. So it sort of opened me up to the idea. Well, people go to college. I guess maybe I should do that too. And when MIcki was saying about she didn't want to take the class on audiovisual stuff, I was at the university teaching there. And she came I remember you came to the office and sat down in my office and started crying. Do I have to do this? Do I have to take this class? So, of course, I told her, yeah, you must. And, no, I didn't. But anyway, so, okay, so my work has been more, I got a PhD in psychology at Michigan State. When we came to Fort Wayne, that was my first job. And I taught at the university, but I was also doing the research on this mental health technology program. So from 1966 to 2004, I was in the mental health technology program and the psychology department. And then in 1970, 8 or something like that, I started a private practice with another psychologist, and I'm still doing that since I retired from the university. And but now I don't do any therapy anymore. I just do assessments so that I can get away, like for the winter, when we go to Florida. But pretty much it's been in. I just been a psychologist.
Okay, so how did you meet and how old were you?
Well, I was 13 years old when I met your papa, and it was a Jewish holiday, and I was walking by the side of his house because we lived just 2 blocks away. Our addresses were the same. We lived on the same corner, 2 blocks away from each other.
Different
And
streets.
I didn't know him, and I'm walking with a girlfriend to the drugstore, and we're walking on the side of his house, and I hear somebody calling my name, and I look over, and this guy I know from school came out and started talking to us, and then Sherwin came out. It was his house, and that's when I met him. And
How old was he?
he was 2 years older than me. I was 13. He was 15. Okay. Then why don't you continue the rest of the story?
Well, Jerry Scher came by. That was the guy, because it was a Jewish holiday. So what we did with our pious Jewish backgrounds on a Jewish holiday was we would get dressed up and go to temple or synagogue and just stand outside and talk to the other kids.
Other kids.
So he came over to my house and said, "Come on, let's go get a date and we'll go to services or something." Well, so I went inside. I didn't have anybody to call. When I came outside, he was standing there talking with MIcki and Sheila. So then he left, and I ended up still talking with them, and then went back to MIcki's house, and I called my best boyfriend, and he came over that afternoon, and the rest is history.
Mm-hmm.
What were your first impressions?
Of each other?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, first impressions. I thought he was funny.
What'd he say? That was funny.
Well, just generally. Just generally making jokes, He was making jokes, and he talked a lot. And I was, more reserved and quiet. So that was, at 13, that's kind of a relief because I didn't have to think of what to say. Because he did a lot of the talking.
What'd you first think of Grandma?
Well, I was immediately drawn to her superior intellect, and was finally relieved that I had met somebody who would probably be my equal intellectually. That was what first drew me to her.
Come on, be serious.
No, my first reaction was, God, she's cute.
Mm-hmm.
And she's looking at me. She's even laughing at what I say.
Mm-hmm.
This could be the start of something big.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have a special song together? Do you have a special song?
I guess what I remember was the first record I bought after I met her, and I had to ask some of the girls in my high school class, was Earth Angel. Remember
Was
Earth
it?
Angel?
Oh, sure.
And then because of our first date, I don't know if you're going to ask about our first date, because our first date was at a drive-in. Drive-in movie. And we saw The High and the Mighty. And there was a theme song from The High and the Mighty, which I won't sing because, you'll cringe.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I think that was one of the
I
songs,
was about
too.
to ask you, can you sing a couple bars?
Earth Angel, Earth Angel, ba 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 ba, something like that. Or then, I was high and mighty, da na na na, da na na na, something like that.
How long did you date before you got married?
6 years.
Yeah, 6
Mm-hmm.
years.
Papa, when and how did you propose?
Whoops. Well, this is going to be recollections, right?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
My recollection is I was kind of like 20, 19, 20, and standing in your kitchen.
They're-
And you said something like, so I kind of need to know, where's this
Where's this-
relationship going?
Right.
So,
I was well.
because
I was 18 and he was 20.
so like we're this old couple now. So where's
but we
this
had been
re-
going together since I was 13.
Since,
So do I need to start dating somebody else, or
what?
or what's happening here?
So I
Because
said,
you would get very upset if I even thought about dating anyone else, as you recall.
well, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, but, so then she said, so where's this going? And I said, well, I guess we probably should get married. So,
What'd she say?
I said, I will.
How did you know she was the one?
well, because there was not another one. It was just Mickey. It had to be Mickey.
How'd you know he was the one?
Because probably there were other guys, and I did have a couple other dates in those 6 years, maybe 2. And because I got to know him really well and felt comfortable with him, and he was also very persistent and always there, and carrying my books from high school or whatever, that
And you were always laughing at my jokes.
right.
What happened when you were still in school and Papa had already graduated?
Which school?
High school.
High
High school.
Nothing.
Nothing. Everything
I went-
continued because we lived so close to each other.
And I went
so
to a city college.
And he went right. He didn't go away to college.
How old were you when you got married?
I was 19.
21. Or, yeah. Right after, when I got my bachelor's degree, we got married.
What do you remember about your wedding day?
It rained.
Was the ceremony outside?
No, it was inside, but my hair got real frizzy.
Like now.
Right.
It's so interesting. I was kind of like oblivious. I mean, I had all day. I read part of a pocketbook. They made a movie with Burt Lancaster about it. Elmer Gantry. I read that, and then got the tux on. Went to the,
Sure.
went to the shul, and
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't nervous until we started walking down the aisle. Then I got a little nervous. Remember, you couldn't eat,
Oh.
so I ate your meal,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Right.
I had 2 meals, and so then we get to the hotel that night, rah rah rah, and the first thing she said is she was hungry, so I had to go out and get her a hamburger.
Right. And what I remember too about the wedding, the actual wedding, is how happy my parents were, and my grandparents. I mean, to have all 4 of my grandparents
Yeah.
at my wedding, it just seemed just wonderful, and my parents were happy.
You know what I remember? Another thing I remember, because this is 1960. I'm 21 years old, and my uncle Mel, my dad's youngest brother, he puts his arm around me. We start walking around, and he hands me $100 bill, and he says, "Here, use this for the honeymoon to do whatever you want." And I was like amazed. $100 in 1960 was a lot of money, and he just gave me a $100 bill, like, "Here, have fun." That was so.
Mm-hmm. Right, and another thing is, my grandmother Becky's brother, who I had never met, who lived in Augusta, Georgia, he also sent $100, and it was like, just astounding that something like that would happen. Never even met him, but he didn't come to the wedding. He couldn't come.
How many people were there?
So, probably a couple
So
hundred
a couple
people.
hundred, yeah.
Two,
It was
250.
it was the first, if not the first, wedding
Right,
at
this-
B'nai Moshe,
the-
the new
their
B'nai
new
Moshe.
building. And there was one thing about their sanctuary, is that instead of the aisle in the middle going down, it went up because you look up to God.
You look up to God.
You look up to God. You look up to the Torah.
What did you do with $100?
We had a great
we had
honeymoon.
we had a good honeymoon. Yeah, we did. We had a good honeymoon.
Where did you go?
We went to a resort in the Catskill Mountains called the Nevele. And when you spell out the word Nevele, it spells 11 backwards. I remember that about
That's
it.
right.
And I meet other people who were married the same year that we were, who also went to the Nevele on their honeymoon. It was a big Jewish Nevele.
It was the hot spot, especially for East Coast people, but a lot of Detroit people too.
Right. Mhm.
And but then after the Nevele, we went into the city.
We went into New York.
And we saw West Side Story.
Like the original West Side
I mean,
Story.
that was amazing to see that a live play on Broadway. I had seen one once before when I went with you to New York, and I saw Mr. Wonderful with Sammy Davis Jr. Big stirring Broadway production. But for me, when the lights went down and the music started, and I mean, I got really emotional, and so that West Side Story was.
Yeah. And that was also the year of a terrible hurricane in New York.
New York.
So, and we saw some of the damage along waterways of trees down and so forth.
Can you tell me the story that you remember the most? Your favorite memory from either your wedding or your honeymoon? Maybe what you did on your honeymoon, what the place was like. Or
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We ate a lot.
We ate a lot.
Because it was the Catskills, and they had this.
They made a lot of jokes about, because there was a lot of honeymooners there. So there was a lot of jokes about, okay, everybody, it's time to go wash your socks.
That was the joke.
That was the joke about it's time to go to your room and do what honeymooners do. But what I remember about New York was we were so sophisticated. We were walking down the street, and all of a sudden we hear, click, gotcha! And this guy says, took your picture, folks. And we gave him $5, and he was going to mail us the picture.
Never saw the picture.
We believed it. I'm surprised. There probably wasn't even film in the camera, but we thought, we were so sophisticated. We drove to the Catskills. And this was like a big trip.
It was one of your uncle's cars.
One of my uncle's car. We drove there, and we drove to New York. We stayed in the St. Moritz. The room was maybe the size of an elevator.
Tiny.
Next to the elevator. But we were, big shot, sophisticated people. But,
I've seen pictures of you from your wedding and after. Tell me about being a hippie.
Okay, being a hippie.
Yeah, what was that all about, and what was that like?
Well, it was, it was the years. It was 60s and 70s, and we were involved with college students at the university, and that's what some of the students, that's the way students dress. Also, faculty. You want to be able to relate to the students. So in terms of dress, beads and long dresses and long hair and peace movements, demonstrations. I became involved in the women's movement in the early 70s, the feminist movement, and I remember taking Laura and Leslie to a march. There were, let's see, it was telephone workers, telephone operators were picketing their company, and it was their union that was picketing the company for a raise and for better treatment. And I remember taking Laura and Leslie down to the picket lines to support, so I mean, a lot of things were going on like that.
Yeah, for me, the hippie stuff really didn't come until after the middle of the '60s, because we were pretty, uh, we grew up in the '50s. It was pretty, I mean, there was no drugs. Alcohol was not a big deal.
Mhm.
But when we left Michigan State and went to Fort Wayne and got involved in the university there, and I got involved in the whole encounter group movement, sensitivity training, because that was going to be part of the curriculum, and met some of the even younger faculty in the next couple years, who, on their breaks would go to the van, one guy's van, and smoke pot and then go to class like it was nothing. And in the middle, and then with, you know, the assassinations that occurred after, Martin Luther King and Robert Kennedy and the Vietnam War, it's sort of like was kind of the awakening for us. And then the whole impact of the feminist movement on you, I think, had a big influence.
On you also.
Yeah, well, yeah, my choosing, right? Because I always considered myself to be pretty neat guy when it came to, women's issues. We had twins, and so I always helped. And then I got reminded that there's a big difference between helping and assuming responsibility, because it's as much my job. So, and there was a lot of learning going on, and a lot of clashes of reality. And then a lot of our friends, a lot of us got introduced to marijuana all about the same time. Older than most people you would think. So we weren't, we were not really young hippies. We got into it, but then I sort of got stuck there forever, and so I'm sort of still lost in the '60s and '70s and proud of it.
Where did you live before you got married?
With our parents.
With our parents in Detroit.
Why would I leave home? I mean,
Right.
I got free room and board. Somebody did my laundry. Somebody put food on the plate for me if I wasn't ready.
Me
Why
too.
would I move? Why would I ever leave?
Never thought about
Never.
that.
As a matter of fact, I knew one kid growing up after we graduated high school that went away. But then we got married. Our first place was a two-story
It was an old house.
in the neighborhood, though.
Yeah, in the neighborhood. We lived on the first floor, and
Of the
then
two-story.
somebody else lived above us.
And then we went to we went to Michigan State,
we lived in married
student
housing.
housing. A little one-bedroom apartment.
Mm-hmm.
How much was it? $18. How much was it a month?
$37.
$37 a month, including all utilities, except for long-distance phone.
Mm-hmm.
But it was so small. When I
Tiny.
studied, I'd have to leave the front door open to the apartment, or else I felt like I was closed in.
How did you end up in Fort Wayne then?
The job. When I graduated, toward the end, when I started looking for work, there were two main jobs I had to consider. One was here in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and one was in
Hartford,
Connecticut. And they both were interesting. One was closer to Detroit, much closer, and the one that was closer to Detroit paid $1,000 more
A year.
a year. And I remember talking to the guy in Hartford, because they made me the job offer. Was working for the Life Insurance Agency Management Association. It was a big. They were a consulting group for insurance companies. I don't even know if they're still in existence. And the other job was Indiana Purdue, Fort Wayne. And I remember talking to the guy in the insurance place and saying that they offered me $10,500. And he said, we just can't do it. We just can't do it. And $10,500 was like, so you want to be a millionaire? I mean, we were rich till we got the first check, and it was gone. So that's how it came to Fort Wayne.
Did you always want kids?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
How
yeah.
many?
We never really, we just thought we'd see what it was like.
Oh, I wanted a ton. Then we had twins.
And that did it.
That did it for me.
How old were you when you had your kids?
Well,
I was 25.
Yeah, we were a little older.
Because of school and everything.
Because of school, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
How did you pick their names?
Well, I think that I knew people by those names, and they were nice people. And we hadn't really picked names before because they were born early.
And unknown.
And we didn't know we needed 2 names.
Tell me
And
that story.
so,
This was
Okay.
before ultrasound.
right. It was before,
So
ultrasound. And so my doctor never said that I was having twins.
he kept saying he only heard one heartbeat.
Right. And the first person that said anything about twins to me was the nurse. We went into the hospital. I was 6 weeks early, and Sherwin was convinced they were going to send me home, that I wasn't really going to be
I didn't even want to go.
having this right. He says, "Are you sure?" I said, "I think I need to go to the hospital."
Well,
And so we get there, and the nurse says, "Honey, you're either having one really big one or 2 little ones." And she was the first one that said anything about it. And it was like I was sticking out really far right in front, but not very much on the sides. Or I hadn't gained all that much weight. I think I gained less than 20 pounds when I delivered. So.
yeah, as I recall, it was a little more than, honey, I think we need to go. It was more like, we're going. But that night that she started saying, I think I'm having labor. I said, nah, you probably have indigestion. We're at a party. And she said, I want to call the doctor. I said, you really want to call? It's like midnight. So we called, and he said, well, call me in the morning. And then it was about 3 o'clock.
In the morning.
I called, and I said, she's having contractions, blah, blah, blah. So he said, let's go. Well, they took her upstairs, and they're checking me in. I get up there, and I said, I don't want to tell you how to run your maternity ward here, but she's too early, And the nurse looked at me like, what the hell do you know?
Right.
And she looked at her watch and said, in about 4 hours. And she was almost right on. So we didn't, you didn't know you're having twins till the first baby was born.
Yeah, let me tell the story. I have to sneeze. Excuse me.
God bless.
Okay. All right. So, I'm in the delivery room. And they didn't, doctor said he didn't have time to call a anesthesia, right. And so he gave me a local. And so, let's see. Laura was born first. And I was watching. They asked me if I wanted to watch. I said, oh, sure. And they put a mirror up, and, so Laura was born. And then the doctor says, I have something to tell you. Okay, what is it? There's another one in there. It wasn't until after Laura was born that we knew there was a Leslie. And then I said, okay, let's just get this over with. I did this once. Now I have to do it again. So he gave me another injection, I think, and then 2 minutes later, then Leslie was born, and they put them in the same cart. It was like a cart.
Like an incubator.
Well, I don't know that it was an incubator. It was like a cart.
We're going to have our first argument on tape.
And then they wheeled, it wasn't covered. It was open, wasn't it? It was open.
The back was covered. The top was open. So you looked into it like an incubator.
Okay.
On one side.
All right.
Whatever.
And so they wheel us out, and then Sherwin is there.
Yeah, you may be wondering why I wasn't in the delivery room. I probably would have declined had I been offered. But in those days, you weren't asked. You could stay in the labor room. And I remember the doctor walked in. He's with a cigar in his mouth, and he's talking about stocks, this and that, and he's doing something under the covers with MIcki, and he says, okay, well, just broke the water. We'll take her in now. So my job is to go in the waiting room and pace back and forth and smoke. which is what husbands did then.
Mhm.
And so then I look through the glass doors and I see a nurse running, which scared me because nurses don't run. Well, they were going to get two of everything they had one for. So they come rolling her down. I run through the doors, and she goes like this, Mickey, two fingers. And I
Mhm.
think, oh, victory. Well, she was meaning two. And I looked over the top, and I see two babies in there, two infants. They were gorgeous. The
Even at
gorgeous.
birth.
They were gorgeous. I've seen some pretty babies and some ugly babies, really ugly babies. But they were gorgeous. And I just freaked. I couldn't sign my name. I had to sign a piece of paper. I couldn't sign my name. It was wild. It was wild.
And 3 weeks later, my brother was getting married, and I was having a maternity dress made for his wedding in August. And so one of the first things I did when I got to the room is I called the woman who was making the dress, and I said, "How far have you gotten? You need to stop. I'm not going to need it to be a maternity dress." So.
Yep, 3 weeks. And we were very cool, comfortable, relaxed parents.
I was.
We we first of all, we didn't get the babies right away because they were too small. You had to be 5.5 pounds.
At that time.
They were 5'1", 4'13", and 5'1", and so we got. Who came home first?
I think
Laura.
Laura came home first.
Laura came home first, and then the weekend, the Friday that you were leaving, we got Leslie home. So we had a friend of ours who was a nurse. So I didn't go in with you when you went in.
We had to go to Detroit for my brother's wedding. So I left
left the babies
when the first day they were both home.
So our friend the nurse is in one room with one baby, and I'm in the room with Leslie, and I slept with the lights on top of the sheets, dressed to make sure that if she got up, I would be able to hear her and feed her. So it was wild. It was wild.
Mm-hmm.
How did you choose their Hebrew names?
That was
names. We first had to choose who we were going to name them after. And so that's what we did. We gave them the Hebrew names of grandparents.
Grandparents.
And, and one uncle.
How we picked the names for who got named Laura and who got named Leslie? Well, they're twins, right? Identical twins. I mean, they were so identical, we had to paint one of their toenails red. So we could know, all right? And we kept a notebook about who got fed when and who pooped when and all that stuff. So we're in the hospital, and they said that, yeah, we had the names picked. We liked both names. It was wonderful. So right before the names were given, they were twin A and twin B. So the nurse says, okay, who's twin A and who's twin B? And I said, well, Laura will be twin A and Leslie will be twin B. And Mickey said, no. I said, oh, okay, well then Leslie will be twin A and Laura will be twin B. And she said, no. And I'm going, well, and this is a multiple choice test. What's the third option? So she said, I have to look at the babies first.
I really hadn't seen them.
To see who looks like Laura and who looks like Leslie.
I want to just look at their faces.
That was the beginning of Men Are From Venus and Women Are From
Mars.
Mars and Venus.
Right.
They're identical twins, Mickey. I have to see them first. So she looked at them and she.
Then I made the decision.
She didn't Christian them. She Jewished them, Laura and Leslie.
Are you really sure Leslie is Leslie and Laura is Laura?
Absolutely. Toenails were painted red. I mean, we were very meticulous.
We were,
and we could tell the difference pretty
soon after. There were a little bit of a difference.
There was differences.
Right.
What was the difference?
Their faces were shaped
differently.
Leslie's was a little longer. Laura's was a little rounder. Well, you just knew.
Yeah.
What was the best thing about raising twins?
Surviving. It's surviving.
No, I would say that they were each other's best company. They always had each other. And I think that was very special. They never really were an only child.
What was the most difficult thing?
Surviving.
The first 3 months.
The, yeah, the
Because they
first
were,
3 months.
they were premature, and there was no schedule, and they were, you just never, you had to sleep. If you went to sleep when they were asleep, inevitably one of them would wake up and one of them would still sleep. So you still had to be. So it was like day and night didn't make any difference. And it was hard. I remember standing in the kitchen eating a TV dinner, these little dinners in aluminum trays, because there was just no time to do anything because we were constantly, or I was constantly taking care of them.
Yeah. For me, the best thing about having, I was sort of joking when I said survive, but I had some doubts, was the best thing about having twins was them, just having them. I mean, they were like amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was, but the hardest thing was in the beginning, man. It was like, you know,
Right.
your whole life revolved around them. Even though I worked, I mean, it just, and 12 o'clock midnight, you come home, or you're tired and you want to go to sleep, but there's no more formula, and you got to make, because Mickey she couldn't breastfeed with kids in the hospital. We had these little things you had to make,
Playtex
Playtex
nursers, they call them.
And you have to be a little mechanically inclined. So midnight, I'm making formula in these little plastic things, thinking, oh my God, I'll never survive this.
What about when they got older?
Mm-hmm. Sure. Well, I remember one day we were in the backyard, and I was with the two of them, and I turned around, and all of a sudden I was just with Laura. I thought, where did Leslie go? And I panicked. Where is she? So I ran to the front of the house, make sure she didn't go in the street. And were you home? I don't remember if you weren't home, right? And yet I didn't want to leave Laura, so I'm carrying her. They were just walking. And finally, I went into the house, and I called and called. I didn't see her. Then I went upstairs. There she is. She had crawled back in her crib. She was tired. Leslie, she gets tired. She has to go to sleep. And there she was, all by herself. Yeah, she just went back in.
Okay, stop.
Hi, I'm Miriam Esther Pomerantz again. I am interviewing MIcki and Sherwin Keeps. This is part 2. It's May 8th, 2010. Did you ever think of having any more kids?
We did, but we couldn't agree because when Laura and Leslie were about 5, I thought that would be a perfect time, to have another child. And Sherwin was pretty adamant about not. And then when they were about 10, Sherwin said, maybe we should have another one. And then I was adamant about not at 10.
I don't remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yep.
Well, it makes me sound like the bad guy, but maybe given how neurotic I am, I mean, it was wonderful and terrific, but it was a big I felt like it was a big responsibility, and but you want us to go back and tell a couple of those cute stories?
Yeah, right. There's a story that I wanted to tell about when they weren't a year old yet, maybe 10 months old, and I was changing a diaper in our family room. I forget whose diaper it was. I think it was Leslie's. I was changing Leslie's diaper, and then I realized I had no diapers downstairs. So I looked at Laura, who was crawling on the floor, and I said, "Oh, could you go upstairs and get me a diaper? I forgot to bring a diaper down." And she takes off. And I decide to go over and see where she wasn't walking yet. Crawling upstairs. Then I'm watching. And she comes out of their room carrying a diaper in her hand. And she crawls back down the stairs and comes and gives it to me. And I didn't even know she knew what I was talking about. No, and here she went. She wasn't even walking.
Well, my horror story about diapers is I was changing. I'm almost sure it was Laura. And we had cloth diapers then. This was, and that was the only thing we got doubles of
Right, we
because of
had a
twins.
diaper service, so I never washed a diaper at all. Never had to wash a
Well, you
diaper
sort
because,
of smushed them out in the toilet
but
each time.
they would pick them up. When they were first born, it was maybe
Yeah,
3 times a week, and then as we used fewer and fewer diapers, it was maybe twice a week, then once a week, but I never washed one diaper.
So I'm changing. I'm pretty sure it was Laura's diaper, and I'm looking down at her and I'm changing it. It was a total accident. When I stuck one of the pins in, I caught her, and it was like her. I mean, she went like. It was almost like her saying, "I can't believe you did this to me, Daddy." I mean, I was like, "Oh my God! I just stuck a pin in my daughter." So that was part of the reasons why another child when they were 5 was. But the, memory, like pulling up in the driveway and they're just beginning to walk and having them run across across the grass toward me. When I would come home from work when they were little kids. I mean, that was like such a joy. And playing with them and doing push-ups with them on my back.
Mm-hmm. Right.
What was the other story?
Say.
No, that was the story.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when we get to, we have some stories about when they were
Oh, right,
older.
teenagers.
Okay.
Teenagers, right.
What kind of parents were you? Strict or lenient?
I would say that we were pretty lenient.
Why?
Mm-hmm. Because they were good girls. I mean, of course, we had times, as they were teenagers, they had to be home by a certain time or call us. I don't think that's being strict. There were a couple of things that maybe they would say that we were strict about. One was their high school graduation, we didn't allow beer. And a lot of their friends had beer at their high school graduation parties at home. And we didn't think that that was the right thing to do. Didn't want to be responsible for somebody getting in a car accident after drinking beer at our house, because they were all driving.
But yeah, to tell you how lenient we tried to be, because it was really important. So I after we said no, you can't because we're responsible. You shouldn't be drinking underage. Blah 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 blah. I finally said, okay, I'll tell you what. Tell me how many kids are coming. We will buy 2 bottles of beer for each person that's coming to the party. And we will supervise the drinking, and no one will have more than 2 bottles of beer. At which point, it must have been Laura, because she said, we don't want you there, and it can't be, we want a keg instead of bottles. At which point I said, well, then you're not going to have a party. So then I tried to, smooth it out by being, trying human relations stuff. I said, okay, you talk for me and I'll talk for you so we'll understand our positions. So I go first. Oh, I understand how it's important to you. If you don't have beer, you'll be embarrassed and blah, 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 and blah, 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 blah. I said, now what's, our position? And she just looked at me and said, you don't want us to have a good time at your party. So that was, teenage logic. But no, we were, I don't ever remember, kind of teenage, baby meltdowns where we had I don't even remember hardly having to discipline. When they were babies, they're kids. Once they had, once they got mouths and they would, talk back, it was, but
Well,
we were
also,
lucky. We were lucky.
yeah. I remember we went to Detroit because our families were there quite often. And so I remember one weekend we were planning to go in to visit. And we told the girls, and Laura, I think it must have been Laura, she said, well, I don't want to go. And I said, we're going. You don't have a choice. We made these plans, and you're going. And I think they were in middle school. And that was kind of, they end up going under duress. But I think we learned something from that situation in that, they were, growing up, and they really needed to have some input into family plans as well. We just couldn't make all the plans without really consulting them far enough in advance.
Yeah, I would use that. I would use that experience in my class teaching about kids needing, to feel like they had some say, because I'm loading the car, and okay, Laura, get in. I don't want to go, and it was like my first reaction was, who's asking you? The luggage is in. You're the next thing in, and then we realized, they have their own rights and say-sos and needs. I mean, we knew that, but it was pretty clear cut.
And when you asked about how we chose the Jewish names, I thought about your name, Miriam, because you're named after my mother, Esther, and that was her. Estelle was her name, but her Jewish name was Esther, and that's your Jewish name. So I'm very happy about that.
Is it more fun to be a parent or a grandparent?
Well, it's so different.
Yeah, it's different.
First of all, we're not involved in your day-to-day life. And so it's very special. And we try to do special things. And when we do see you and we are around you, and fun things, but we don't have the responsibility for you on day to day. Whereas when you raise children, you are responsible and, pretty much until they're not living with you. So that's a long time. So I don't know if fun is the right thing. I guess one person described the difference to me as it's like a nut. Your child is like the outside of the nut, but the grandchildren are like the soft insides.
How is it being Jewish in Fort Wayne? Grandma going into school at Hanukkah?
Oh, yes, right. Going into school with the menorah and the candles every year. Since Laura and Leslie were mainly all through school the only Jewish kids in their schools. And so, there were, so we did Hanukkah up to a certain point, and then they did it. Then they, were sure to bring Hanukkah into their whatever school they were in. And there was some anti-discrimination that they experienced. And since we live in mainly a Christian area and Christian school, there were Christian clubs that were allowed in the schools.
Youth for Christ.
It was Youth for Christ. And so
They were in high school. This is an example of they were in high school, and they had an assembly, and it was Youth for Christ brought a group in, but everybody went to the assembly, and so
required to go to the assembly.
So the girls are there, and at one point, the song leader or whatever asked for everybody to close their eyes and see if they could find Jesus in their heart. At which point, both girls got up and left and went to the principal's office and complained to the principal. Came home and told us about it. And there was a big, big uproar. I mean, it was East Allen County Schools. They had the East Allen County school system,
board
meeting, and
about the
incident, and then they had an open meeting with parents. What's going to happen? What's going to be?
The rumor was that we were going to sue the school district, And I don't know how that got started because we never said anything like that. But somebody must have said they could sue because it's illegal.
So that summer, I was part of a group. They had teachers, administrators, and
Board members.
and then the Jewish guy. And we talked about procedures like, can you really pray before a football game? Can you really pass out Bibles? Um, you know, and I said, well, yeah, you want to pass out Bibles, then you're going to have to open yourself up for, all religions, et cetera, et cetera. It wasn't so much that it was discrimination as just sort of
Education.
just sort of ignorance. Um,
Mhm.
but you want us to share that one story to really embarrass the girls?
I would love you to.
This was the beginning of the beginning of knowing that your kids could lie to you and you wouldn't know it. Up to that point, you always knew, you believed that you knew everything your kids were thinking and they couldn't lie to you. We went out of town
Went to Chicago for the weekend.
for the weekend. The girls were going to be staying with friends.
Mm-hmm.
And we were having some work done in the house, some remodeling a little. We had some new carpeting in. And the guy that was doing the remodeling, named Jerry, he was there a lot because they kept having to redo things because they were not very good. So we come home on a Sunday evening before the kids were coming back, and Jerry's there, and he's painting one of the walls. And we're going, Jerry, what are you doing on Sundays? He says, well, he's painting some of the walls. And, it didn't seem right, and I don't know, I started noticing each of our rooms, because we had electric heat in the ceiling, so each room had a separate control for the temperature, the thermostat, and I'm going around from room to room, and everything's different. They're all in different settings, and why is that? And then I walk into the den, and there in the middle of the carpet is a hole. And I'm going, what is going on? So we start questioning Jerry. He didn't really want to say.
Mm-hmm.
So the wind-up is, the kids had a party, right? And looked like it got out of hand a little. And that's what happened. They had a party, and it got out of hand. Somebody was there with a hatchet, and they were drinking and smoking and all kinds of stuff. So Laura and Leslie come home, so Mickey and I are primed now, indignant parents.
Mm-hmm.
So this is an example of the difference between Leslie, your mother, and your aunt Laura.
At the time,
At the
anyway.
time. Well, I don't know at the time, maybe now. They come in, we confront them. Immediately, Leslie starts crying. I knew we shouldn't do it. I'm sorry. I knew it was going to happen. Oh, my God, my God, my God. And Laura goes, well, maybe if you weren't so overprotective, we wouldn't have to go behind your back.
And we found out afterward that they called one of our neighbors for help. Because the
neighbor's kids.
No, the neighbor's kids,
okay.
right. For help. They were a little older than them because the party got out of hand. I guess word got around school that we were going to be out of town and Laura and Leslie were having a party. And all these kids showed up that they hadn't expected. So
yeah, that
was
and
part of it also.
And I think their main punishment, although when they would get grounded,
they'd lose the telephone.
They lose the telephone. Not
right.
the cell phone. There were no cell phones.
There were no cell phones.
But they couldn't make or receive calls.
Calls, right.
That, they would get grounded.
Mm-hmm.
What values did you learn from your parents that you tried to teach your kids? Were you successful?
Let me preface it by saying, with Mick, when we moved, when we were in Fort Wayne and we had the girls, Mickey said, it's not like Detroit, where you walk outside and you take a deep breath and you're Jewish. If we want our girls to have any sense of their Jewishness, we're going to have Jewish identity. We're going to have to be more active at synagogue, at temple.
Right.
And initially we belonged to both the synagogue and the temple. So we got pretty active, and they did too. And I think that was
So in terms of active, we both taught in the religious school.
We were both on the board.
Both been on the board a couple different times, several different times. We were very close with the rabbi, Rabbi Safran.
Right.
We did these wonderful camping weekends because Rabbi Safran liked to camp, and so I
Reform synagogue.
Reform Synagogue, right? And so I ended up buying a camper because Sherwin was unsure of it, and I decided I was going to just buy one on my own. I had some money, and I bought a camper, and had the rabbi come over, and he blessed our camper when we got it, and then we went on these weekend campouts at a state park nearby. They were just wonderful. We'd all gather on Friday evening, and we'd bring Shabbat dinner and set up all the picnic tables end to end, and have a service, and then have a bonfire and sing. And our friends Norm and Ronnie played the guitar then, and sang and led us. And we had several weekends like that, at least one a year when they were growing up, of the temple campouts. And, that they really identified, that helped to form their identification as Jews in, a very nice, relaxed, fun way.
One of the things I remember my father saying early on was, you never make money off of friends or family. You don't take advantage of your friends or your family. And for me, that translated into, you need to do what's fair and what's right. And I think we really tried to, and tzedakah, we really tried to, and partly that was Jewishness too, in terms of at least social justice.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what, and absolutely positively, whatever we tried to teach, they got from us, but, every place, and they sure got it in spades, because they live their lives that way now, both girls, in terms of, what we consider to be important.
Important values, right.
Values. Family,
mm-hmm. And
fairness.
Certainly their experiences at Jewish camps,
Yep.
kind of reinforced,
Made a big difference.
Values like justice, social justice, and fairness, and
Micki's involvement, just the involvement in the feminist movement,
right?
But coming through civil rights and and then gay rights and all that, it was just always.
It was always there and important and.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
What do you admire most in each other?
Okay. There's, lots of different things for me. I already said something about, Sherwin is creative. He's a creative thinker, and he makes really wonderful connections in a lot of different ways, including using humor to make a point, or to explain something, and kindness.
I didn't know you thought I was creative. That's good to hear. Micki's a nice person. I don't know how to say it. She's a nice person. She's not, she's not petty. She's kind. Family is very important. She laughs at my jokes. I mean, and it's really funny because I'll tell the same joke in different groups, and she's still always laughing.
Even if I've heard it before.
Even if she's heard it before.
Once it's funny, it's always funny.
And, she's crazy about her grandkids. She is crazy about her grandkids. That's, So, she's just a good person.
Very nice. Do you have any last remarks?
Well, I think you've done a wonderful job
Yes,
here.
terrific.
You know, you've thought about these questions, and you probably had a little help, but that's okay. They were great questions, and this was fun to do.
Actually, it's interesting.
Oh, what were you gonna say? Oh.
Oh,
Ah,
thank you, honey.
you get lipstick on me?
No, I don't have hardly any on.
Okay, so thanks for listening to me, and I hope you have a good anniversary also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, whatever car you decide that your folks decide and your aunt and uncle decide.
I have 7 months.
No,
Oh,
no, not for you. No, honey. Whatever new car they decide to give us, or whatever condo, or whatever cruise ship tickets. I just, we know we're going to appreciate it a whole lot.
Yes, we do appreciate everybody.
Bye.
Do you even plug this in?
You're not going to play this whole thing. I understand that you knew that Laura was the rounder face, and you knew them after you painted it. But are you absolutely sure that Leslie was the second one out? Like, could they have mixed them up right then?
That was tiring.
Oh, is that? Oh, are we?
That's the question?
Because she's been the last one out. Her whole life. Are we absolutely sure? No. No, we're not absolutely sure.
You were.
No, we're absolutely sure we can tell who's who.
Oh, sure.
But who was the first one out?
No, we don't. We are not. If you want to give Leslie some ammunition, we are not absolutely sure because we're going on what we were told in the delivery. And I was not in the delivery room.
Right.
And Mickey was otherwise occupied.
Right.
No, we cannot be. No, I cannot 100% say that Laura was the first. Okay. Now, if you want to ask who we like more, that we might be able to answer that definitively.
Yes.
So the next time you were involved with a birth after we were born was when Miriam was born.
That's right.
So how was that for you, becoming grandparents for the first time?
Oh.
And how was it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I was very excited when Miriam was born. And we were in New Orleans when I got the that your mom going into labor. And so instead of going home to Fort Wayne, Indiana, I flew to Baltimore from New Orleans, made reservations in the middle of the night. And I was very happy to make it to the hospital in time before you were born. And so I could be there, at your birth. And it was just a highlight.
Now,
Being at the birth of the first grandchild. And it was very exciting.
You almost had the baby with?
It was very exciting.
It was.
Well,
You know what?
Right.
But what-
I didn't make it.
It lasted for about 5 minutes where, okay, you have to stand on the other side of the
Miriam,
room.
I want you to
And
hear
then
what
you
I have to say.
became An active participant
Mm-hmm.
in the birth.
now talk about Aaron's birth.
No, wait,
wait,
now
wait.
Papa has something to say.
I just want to say, right, because I want to say, with Miriam, remember I told you, I said on the tape how unbelievably beautiful the girls were when they were born. And I've seen pretty and ugly babies,
Mm-hmm.
okay? But with Miriam,
was
you were beautiful, too, honey.
Was I
You
fat?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You were just well-formed,
you were
and you
so-
had these
you
beautiful
were just beautiful.
lips. Beautiful heart lips. They were like little hearts.
the chubby.
Yeah.
Was I the chubbiest or the second chubbiest?
Yeah,
Because I
you
know
were
I
just-
was
you were-
chubby.
I mean, that was
Thank you.
aside from, oh my God, this is a daughter of my daughter.
Of course. Yes.
It was just gorgeous.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right.
Thank you, Papa.
So now we have to go through because all the 3 kids are here. Well, with Aaron?
Yes.
Oh God, no. Aaron was
Mm-hmm.
Aaron was cute.
Cute,
But
not
actually,
beautiful.
what I really most remember about you, honey, is unfortunately you're not going to appreciate this. Is the way Miriam reacted to you.
Yes.
They have it on tape. I'm sure you've seen it.
I
And
think
you-
I've heard
And I
it.
don't know if you can. She came in like it was her baby. My baby, my baby. And she held out both hands.
Mm-hmm.
You know, can I hold my... Not she didn't say, can I hold my baby? And then when somebody came to visit, I think it was one of your
In the
aunts and
room.
uncles in the
Right.
room,
Mm-hmm.
Miriam says, you want to hold my baby? It was like unbelievable.
Right.
Right? What I remember most is the story Grandma tells about you walking by Shira, looking at her and stepping on her. That was before she could even aggravate you.
Right.
I think her presence, because you were dethroned.
Disturbed me.
Right.
That's where it all comes from.
Right.
You were dethroned.
She thinks it's
She-
from when you were chewing the cookie, and then I wouldn't share because she was biting on your shirt, and you said that I think she was hungry, Aaron. How about you give her some of your cookie? And then I said, no, my cookie, and that's how Shira thinks it started out between fighting.
Yeah, no, I think it started from the very beginning.
It started from the very beginning, but
Very
it also
beginning.
continues because Shira is so skillful, so unbelievably talented in knowing exactly how to piss you off.
Yes, she is.
And so you give her
But I'm better.
unbelievable power and control over you.
But I'm better at it.
Better at doing it to her?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
I use
I
physical.
don't know.
No.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I remember I imitated you earlier about how you used to melt down.
Okay, I have a
Nice.
question. Did you talk about the retreats we went on?
Pop-up camper.
Well,
I
the
talked-
pop-up camper. How about when we went on the women's retreat?
Oh, I don't.
The interesting people that we met. And hung out.
I don't remember. Yeah, we did. Yeah, right. Several of my friends in the women's movement were lesbians. You know, we were
Some were
mixture.
first available.
Yeah, I mean there were.
Yeah. They'll take whatever they can get.
So, I don't know what else you want me to say about it.
No, not
The
yeah, but
women.
some of it. I mean, it was good in the end. It was all great for them. But in the beginning, I was like a little hesitant. You know, she was schlepping these little girls, my innocent little daughters, off to wave signs, and you know they don't know what they're doing, and they're getting involved in this. But and they want to be cheerleaders and pom pom girls.
Right.
Right.
Dad, I have this image of us in high school, and we were playing on the powder puff football team.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to talk about that? Because I'm convinced that was like your best moment of your life. Is when what happened.
This is you were seniors.
We
You were
were
seniors
I
in
think it
high
was the best
school.
moment. What happened?
No, it wasn't the best moment of my life.
But you got real
But
excited.
I got excited. I mean, I didn't
What
have it.
happened?
Well, Laura scored a touchdown on a kickoff return, and I was running. As she's running down the field, I think I was running on the bleachers. She was far ahead of me, screaming, "Go, go, go!" And so that was. And on the next play was the kickoff for the other team, and there was the gal with the football, a blocker, and you were the last remaining obstacle to the touchdown. So you, in all of your stark bulk, met the other immovable force of the blocker, at which point you flew in the air, landed on your butt. And I actually got scared a little, but you really landed. She really gave you a block. Slide over. Oh.
Yeah, I think that, right, Laura scoring that touchdown was the most exciting moments of your life. Finally.
Oh, no.
Or how about the gymnastics?
Well,
Remember, like the hypnosis?
Oh, we would go, we would try sports psychology before a meet. I would have, visualizing, walking the beam, doing the walkover, nailing it, going through all the movements and this and that. But she accuses me of making her, the first time she was able in competition to do a walkover and nail it, and I yelled, "Yes!" And she fell off. So I get accused of that.
Or she landed here. Yeah!
Boom. Well, I think I was as excited when I saw the first time I saw you and your sister when you were rehearsing for that concert, and you did True Colors and
Oh, here in Baltimore, right.
Right, so
I
like
was
a couple
screaming
years
about as
ago.
loud as that.
Mm-hmm. He was.
So, but we did tell them about the party.
Mhm. Couldn't leave that one out.
So what's it like to entrust your daughters to other people, like other than getting married? Well,
Okay.
20 years later.
Right.
Okay.
20 years later. Okay. Well, one of our son-in-laws, we had a little chance to get to know for a longer period of time before the engagement, because Jimmy went to IU and came to our house for weekends, for visiting, for dinners. We learned how much more a guy can eat than girls. So we sort of got used to him slowly.
did you ever get used to the other one?
And sure. And Stephen, we met, after Leslie had been dating him for quite a while, and we had heard about him, but we hadn't met him. And I think Stephen was pretty nervous the first time we came to Baltimore, and he seemed to be a little nervous meeting us, because I think that he knew already that Leslie was the one. And so over the last 20 years, we've certainly gotten to know Stephen and gotten to love Stephen. And so it was just, different for us, because we didn't get to know him slowly like we did Jimmy.
For me, really, I don't know that I've ever said it quite like this, but you were involved with somebody.
Oh, Leslie was.
Leslie,
Somebody else.
Somebody else.
In college.
In college.
At IU.
And he was a really nice guy. We had met. I liked him. He was he was tall.
We had met his parents.
He was tall. He had a lot of hair, and he was funny. And we met his parents. And then when you had decided, that after you had been with Stephen for a while and this and that, the way you presented it was so mature and so well thought out and so reasoned, in addition to the emotion, that I just,
Sure,
I just
accepted
thought
it.
it was, this was,
Right.
you were making the best decision you could make. And then when I met Stephen, remember, right after we met and we were alone, you said, "So what do you think?" And I remember I said, "About what?" So, but I saw the way he looked at you and the way you looked at him, and I thought, this is it.
Right.
This is right.
Mm-hmm.
And all the kinds of things that you valued when you said that before, he sure embodies in terms of, his love of family and, et cetera, et cetera. So, that was easy. And I'm not just saying that because he's behind the camera.
Mm-hmm.
Is this even running? Oh, yeah. Oh, it's running.
Uh-oh.
By your turn, talk about you. Shira, the troublemaker. Shira,
littlest grandchild.
Shira,
Right.
Shira. Yeah, the
Right.
shy one.
All right. And when
Hi.
Shira was born, we didn't make it here. I didn't make it here because
Not
Shira.
that time. The
Not
other
that time. The other 2 times I did, but when Shira was born, it was sort of real fast.
Nobody made it.
Your mom almost
Shira
didn't make
almost
it to
didn't
the
make it.
hospital. Right. You were almost born in the car.
I felt like you said I was almost born in the toilet. Did you say
In the
that?
restroom. Yeah.
Well, 3 different times, I think. One could have easily been in the theater bathroom.
Oh, right.
And then Dad sort of carried me across the street to the car
And
with somebody else. I don't know who. Friend of Dad's we saw.
Dad, didn't you drop something in the middle of the road and you went together and you're like, hello?
Yeah, that was his belt.
Uh-huh.
And then we made it to the hospital, and I went upstairs.
Who took you
And
upstairs?
they said, "Are you in labor?" I said, "Yes." And they checked me, and I was fully dilated.
What does that
15
mean?
minutes later.
That you were ready.
Ready for the baby to come out.
Was that March 17th?
That's
At
right.
like 10:45, and you were born at 11.
Well, did you know you were going to be pregnant with
And
me?
you called me on the way to the hospital and said, you know,
So how did you
she's
feel?
going to
Were
be
you like
born.
panicked?
I
or-
was, yeah.
Wait, Mom, you didn't know I was going to be born?
You were
Yeah,
panicked?
I was very nervous. Right. Because I had been talking to you all day. And because you weren't sure you were in labor. And you kept saying, I don't know if to tell you to come or not. I mean, you kept saying that. Because what if, what if I'm really not in labor? And I kept calling you, do you want me to come? Do you want me to come? So, well, I made it there the next day,
Right.
I think.
It's almost 4 o'clock already. Yeah. The other thing about what the son-in-law Stephen, you think he's Jewish enough? Yeah, I don't know.
Right.
The daughter's a Jewish person.
Uh-huh. Right.
Yeah, well, that, yeah.
So I have to ask you one question. Miriam touched on it, but first of all, where is it that there is the best corned beef? And what makes it the best corned beef?
I guess that I
Sorry,
can
have to
tell
show
you.
this, but that's
Okay, but I was going to talk about pastrami.
Oh.
Okay, I'll talk about pastrami. He'll
Alright.
talk about corned beef.
And I'll
Okay?
talk about beef.
We there's a place in Florida that we always went to for the absolute best pastrami. But this year we found another place called Pastrami Queen, and it's equal. And this place has a restaurant in New York called Pastrami King, and they opened one in South Florida called Pastrami Queen.
You ate there, didn't you, Steve? No, you didn't go.
And so I would say that, they have the best pastrami.
Although, all due credit, that deli here in Baltimore is wonderful pastrami. Yeah. But as far as corned beef, well, see, I don't know that I'm the best at corned beef. Although
So let's talk about bagels.
bagels that's flat out dough contest. Detroit has the best bagels, and if they come especially from the New York Bagel Company.
And why is that?
The water. It's in the water. It's in the water. But that's what everybody says. That's the herb.
Can you tell us just very quickly, some of the things you like a lot? So we talked about corned beef, bagels, anything else?
Good pizza.
Pizza, wine maybe?
Oh, wine. Frozen vodka, wine.
Did you bring your
Okay,
wine
I need
shirt?
a kind of
Cars?
a little
What's your favorite car?
pause.
You know, I've had tons of cars, but,
Pause.
what's my car? I don't want to say anything because it's not the same make that you're giving us for our 50th. I don't want you to feel bad.
Pause.
I have a long history with bagels because when I was a kid, the bagel factory was in an old Jewish neighborhood, and you could go in the back and watch them make the bagels by hand. And I remember standing there one time, and there was this huge, and it was hot in the back, and sweat's pouring off this huge African-American guy, and he's making these bagels. And I looked over at my father or somebody, and the sweat is pouring on. I says, Dad, is that how they make salt bagels? So, but I've actually had some decent bagels, really, some decent bagels in Florida. They make one deli makes what they call mini bagels, which are about normal sized bagels, because in Florida they make them like they do in New York, these huge puffy things. So the mini bagels we've been buying those.
Not Old Bay bagel.
That's a fufu bagel. But by the way, we use Old Bay on a lot of things, Stephen. We have several cans around, both kitchens. Put them on fish. We put them on when we do oven brown potatoes. We do the Old Bay. So we brought You've brought new seasoning to our life.
So is there anything else that you want to tell us?
Oh, you want it, but you want us to say. What do you want us to say?
Well, I was going to ask you about, you told us about bagels and the cars, and I think we've covered your whole life. So how does it feel to be married for 50 years?
Unreal.
Unreal.
Yeah, it's hard to believe. I mean, you know, I can ask you the same question. How does it feel, you know,
Right.
to be married for 19 years, 20 years?
You could, but I'm
It's
asking you.
just, right.
Well, you know, but when
But, you know,
it feels
it's-
rich when you look back. I mean, it just feels rich,
Mhm.
abundant.
It does. I think, you know, we've been real fortunate
Oh boy.
with our families. So, you know, you just hear horror stories about kids, grandkids, whatever, you know. And so I think we've been real fortunate. Our daughters have very rich, full lives. They have wonderful husbands and great kids.
And
And-
maybe it wasn't just fortune. Maybe it was. Maybe you had something to do with it.
I'd like to think
You
that.
know, yeah. You know, it's true. And at the same time, you know, you can do everything right, and still things, all kinds of bad things can happen.
Right.
And you can do a lot wrong and have kids that are wonderful. But, you know, sure, we played some part. We'd like to believe that we did. Especially because of all the things that we consider to be important. I mean, they're good. They're kind. You know, they're concerned about welfare and justice, equality. You know, liberal views, unlike some of their spouses.
And Judaism, you know, and
And Judaism.
they're, you know, involved in the continuation of their religion.
You know, and all the wonderful things we hear from people that don't need to say it to us about how wonderful our kids are.
Right.
But, you know, we don't hear so much about our son-in-laws, but our kids, we hear it all the time. You know, I'm just saying that because you're behind the cameras.
Right.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy 50th.
Happy 50th. Okay.
Okay, I have a few more things that we want to say. We want to talk somewhat about our daughters and their history and our involvement in their history with music. And I would say that it started when they were about 3 years old, and we purchased a used upright piano just because we thought that every home and every family should have a piano. Both Sherwin and I grew up with pianos in our homes. And lo and behold, they took to that piano immediately. Even at that young age, they would just go and keys, and they started picking out melodies. And then when they were about 5 years old, I started taking them for piano lessons. That there was a music teacher that was retired from teaching and teaching in like an elementary
She
school.
lived right around the block.
And she lived right around the corner. And we started with 15-minute lessons. I'd walk over there with them, and they'd have the lessons, and we'd walk back home. And this went on for a good couple of years, 3 years or so. Then we kept graduating to better piano teachers, better and better as they grew older and started having serious interest in music. Then do you want to pick up some of their stories?
When one of our couple that we grew up with in Detroit, Nordy and Esterly, had two daughters that were older than the girls. And when we visited them, they were living in Indianapolis at the time, the oldest daughter had been playing guitar.
Stacy.
And so she started with the girls, and I think Stacy even gave them, the girls, one of a guitar. So it was their first guitar that they started with. So then I don't know that they never had guitar lessons right then, but they just would play it, and then they started getting guitar lessons in either I think it was junior high. I remember one time I got into a fight with the director of the guy that owned the music school where he had the instrument band and lesson place, because we paid up front for several lessons to this part-time teacher, and the teacher left, and so the the owner of the store was not going to make good on the money that we had already paid, and I got a little upset on the telephone and used some language that was not quite what you would expect.
Superlatives.
I used a few
Bad words.
F's and S's and SOBs and all that, and he was able to use that as a reason to hang up on me. And of course, I think it was Leslie. I forget which girl was taking the lesson, but they were mortified that I would talk that way. So, but then Laura played flute. Okay. And then when they were graduating from high school, I pleaded with them to.
Well, before that, Leslie was in the, what's the name of the band you were? The singing group?
The show choir.
The show choir. And that was fun. I think it was fun for her. It was a great experience. They did jazzy kind of songs. They all had outfits that matched, and they sang all over the city for different groups and in malls and so forth. And so that was fun. And then let's see, marching band. We didn't talk about marching band, right?
Band.
And
then she was a song leader at summer camp at Zionsville. But the best, I mean, for me, the besides the history of their music, was when the two of them would sing together.
Harmonize. And they would work it out together, the harmony.
But if you've ever heard the expression, your heart singing, when they would sing, it was like my heart would sing. And, when they talk about you should get nachas from your kids, I mean, that's the absolute positive best, the best.
Right, and we weren't their only fans in the family. My mother was just so proud of them, and I mean, from the time they were little, and she was working at Saks Fifth Avenue and would send all these twin outfits, and I never dressed them as twins myself, but my mother did. She really thought it was good and cool. And then as far as their singing and instrument playing, I think that my mother had them entertain her friends at several different occasions. We would even visit my grandmother in the nursing home, and the girls would play piano at the nursing home and entertain all the residents. And of course, everybody quelled. So.
And even now, well, with Leslie, what she's doing, but
been able to accomplish and grow with her music in unbelievable ways.
Right. It's just. Anyway, so that was for us at least, that was the one thing we wanted to make sure got said. The girls. I mean, we're proud of them for a number of things, but the music when they sing, I mean, it's like, anyway, I can't. It's even hard to put into words. So it's a good thing they don't sing on the balance beam, because my screaming would make them fall off again. So, and then we don't want to go on forever, but did you want to share the story about, number one, how we got...
Oh, well, there were two different events in our life that occurred because of automobile accidents. They were positive things that resulted from the automobile accidents. The first one was, I believe it was your car, that Pontiac?
Yeah, Pontiac Chieftain.
What year was that? 57 or 56? Okay.
Something like that.
Well, I was a little fender bender with that car. And,
picking me up from work.
Right. And we weren't married. We were dating, but I was driving his car. And we never got the car fixed, but we did get paid for the damage, and that ended up being the engagement ring.
Part of the down
engagement
payment of the engagement ring.
Because we didn't have much money in those days.
And the rest we borrowed from my folks, and we paid it back the night of our the next day from our wedding. The money that we got from our wedding, we used it to pay back.
To pay back, right.
And we got the ring, the stone separate from the setting. We bought it from,
A
wholesale.
friend of the family.
Friend of the family.
Who's a wholesaler.
Wholesaler in jewelry. And it was so funny because we were sitting there and we had the stone picked out and he said, what do you want to buy this? He said, it's not going to keep you warm. He said, you can't eat it. He said, you need this diamond.
You can't sit on it. He said, why don't you buy a couch instead?
It was so funny. He says, this guy making a living selling diamonds,
trying
and
to
he's trying to
talk
talk
us
us
out
out of it.
Mhm.
So, and then the next time
The
was not so
accident,
funny. It was
no.
Mickey's accident, which was
Right.
really, really bad accident.
Which was in, 1963 or 64?
Yeah.
And that's when we were in East Lansing, at Michigan State. And it was not a great experience, but as a result, we were able to get a down payment on our first home in Fort Wayne. The girls were 9 months old when we moved into a brand new house in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and the down payment was
Came from that.
came
It was
from
$4,000.
I thought it was $10,000.
No, we paid $24,500 for the house, and we ended up with a $19,500 mortgage. The payments were $138 a month, and people tell me at school at IPFW when I came to work the day that I signed the mortgage papers, I was shaking because I didn't believe how we were going to be able to afford this payment of $138 a month and everything that went with the house. That was
Right.
principal, taxes
And insurance, everything.
So, anyway, so that's how we got our house, which was where the girls lived all the time until they went away to school.
Right. And I also wanted to mention some more about my mother because she had a very special relationship with Lord Leslie, to the extent that when they first moved into the sorority house at IU, she decided she wanted to go visit them in the sorority house. So she flew into Indianapolis. I picked her up, and we spent a weekend. We stayed in the guest room in the sorority house, my mom and I, so she could experience what sorority life was like for Lord Leslie. And she was just extremely proud of them, and carried their pictures and wrote to them all the time. So she was closer to them, I think, in a lot of ways than I was, because she kept up on all the boyfriends.
They would, we would hear things.
I never did.
We would hear things from
Estelle, right?
Before that the girls told before we knew about it.
Mm-hmm.
So and then the sorority was in the whole other story, which we can't get into. I forget the Greek letters. I always thought it was IOU, but I think it was ZBT. No, that's a boys, zillions, billions, and trillions.
SDT.
SDT.
Mm-hmm. It was SDT. So.
Not to be confused with STD, but it was STD. Okay, is that enough? Okay, thanks, Eva.